Serious. Therapists. What is something people tell you that they are ashamed of but is actually normal? Intrusive thoughts. People often say that they have really unpleasant and sometimes violent intrusive thoughts. This is actually a lot more common than people think. It does not mean that you are violent or disturbed. I remember reading somewhere that these intrusive thoughts are a way for your brain to warn you about potential realities. Like, your brain is saying, this could happen, so don't do it. Edit. Typos. I have intrusive thoughts of just being super cringe during serious moments. Like if we have a serious meeting with my boss or at work, I start thinking, what if I just jumped up on this table, took off my shirt and just starting pinching my nipples erotically while meowing like a cat? Mixed or even positive feelings when a loved one dies after a protracted illness. Especially someone who hung on for a long time, very sick and suffering, or an older relative with dementia. There's often a feeling of relief, of, at least that's over. It's perfectly normal and it doesn't mean you didn't love the person. My cousin recently passed from a lifetime of illness, starting with a premature birth, then cancer, then an endless string of issues. I miss my cousin, but I'm glad she doesn't have to put up with it anymore. Yup. I've learned this personally and try to use it whenever dealing with someone else going through a loss. You experience a whole range of emotions when a loved one dies, and you should never let others tell you or even imply how you should be feeling. My mother died of cancer and of course I was very upset, angry, devastated, sad. But I also felt very relieved and almost happy it was over, because watching her decline towards the end, especially in the last few days when she was barely lucid, was absolutely terrible. And in the actual moment that she died, the strongest feelings I remember having were just how fucking surreal and bizarre it was. I was ashamed of those feelings at first, but I came to realize I shouldn't be, and they're completely normal. Death is very surreal, and we as humans are terrible with dealing with it. As societies, we often hide and suppress the realities of death. And at the same time, we romanticize it in a way. We're very prescriptive about how it should be and how people should feel about it, but death rarely looks like it does in the movies, and it never really feels like it either. Also, it's okay to, not be crying constantly after someone dies, in any circumstances. In the movies, they always portray the drive to and from the hospital, the funeral, etc., as being dead silent and full of tear-streaked faces. Real grieving doesn't work that way most of the time. For me, it's more like I have this upper-level existence where I'm still able to laugh and smile and do the dishes and get through the day, and then there's this lower-level, insidious, subconscious part of myself that's really grieving. That's the part that makes me snappish, that makes me exhausted, that every once in a while makes me sit down and think, oh my god, he's really gone. It's not like I lose the ability to talk or to function. It's more like I have something lingering over myself like a dark cloud that I can sometimes ignore simply because I'm so busy, but at the same time, sometimes it starts raining and I can't help it. For a long time I thought there was something really, really wrong with me and that I wasn't mourning, like I should. Like I was some kind of psychopath for being able to get up and go to work in the morning rather than spend weeks unable to move or eat or do anything but stare at the wall and weep if someone I loved passed away. And then I thought I was really bad, because I tend to get into a really sour mood after someone I've loved dies. I felt a lot of guilt and even fear over how I felt after a death. Turns out what I felt was normal. All of it is normal. Hollywood isn't real, life is real. I was grieving. That's what grief is. I tried to run away once. Was mad. So I packed a backpack full of supplies and, later that night, threw on the backpack at like 2 a.m. and started to sneak out. I immediately fell down our stairs from the very top and made such a loud noise falling down that I woke my parents up. I was too embarrassed to try sneaking out again. I tried once, too. In the process of packing supplies, I was calculating how long they'd last me and realized it was only a few days. It was an interesting realization for kid me, the logistics of staying alive day after day, week after week. I just ate my sandwiches I'd made and went to do the chores I was supposed to with a newfound appreciation for my parents. Having intrusive thoughts, thinking about steering into oncoming traffic is a popular one. Also, when they're talking about inner dialogue, people fear I'd consider them psychotic. Edit. For those interested or struggling with intrusive thoughts, I highly recommend The Imp of the Mind, by L. Bear. It's well written and has some great exercises. Regarding inner negative dialogue, Breaking Negative Thinking Patterns by Gitta Jacobs is generally considered to be a very practical self-help book. They're no substitute for therapy, obviously, but I think both can benefit any reader. I literally have an ongoing conversation in my brain. Sometimes it's hilarious, and sometimes I just want to bash my head against the wall just so my brain would shut up. When I was at the peak of my anxiety and depression, I would fill up pages writing, "Shut up." Funnily enough, it worked. I voice my thoughts and explain things to myself each time I'm alone. Usually in foreign language. Usually it was English, now it's Norwegian. I guess it helps me process things. If it's something like narrating a video game I'm playing, it allows me to enjoy it more that way. I guess as long as I do it only when I'm alone, there's nothing wrong with that. Thinking face. I have intrusive thoughts like this, but they are all related to chronic pain escalating. Like if my bad knee is extra bad, I have the urge to pop my kneecap off with a flathead screwdriver. Migraine? Maybe if I drill a hole in the back of my head, some of the pressure will subside. My therapist put a positive spin on it. Even your intrusive thoughts are creative. I've wondered if intrusive thoughts are a byproduct of our brain's simulation systems. In the wild, if you see something novel, you need a quick worst-case scenario to be prepared to react to. This could be a predator you spotted, or a family member walking near something perilous. We most certainly have unconscious simulations run inside our brains. I am curious if the above has any merit with the evidence we already have. That's an interesting take on it. I'm not an expert, but the way it was explained to me is, your brain is running an antivirus check. If it says, throw the baby across the room, and you think to yourself, okay, I realize I just thought that, but I'd never throw the baby across the room, then your brain says, okay, all is healthy here. Not sure if there's any merit there, or maybe it's closer to your idea. It's definitely a fun thing to learn, think about. I was genuinely angry when I found that out. How come I get stuck with a non-stop chatterbox talking bollocks 24 hours a day and other folk can just experience silence? Beyond unfair. I think they meant more the kinds of things they say in their internal monologue. But no, actually, not everyone has an internal monologue. Some people do not hear their own voice in their mind at all. Some people's thoughts are more abstract than that. Some people are not capable of visualizing things in their mind either. Okay, so confused right now. So what is the process of reading text quietly for someone who does not have an internal monologue? For me, the voice that does the thinking also does the reading. If I am reading a book, I am not thinking about something else unless it suddenly kicks in and the voice stops reading to reflect on, oh yeah, I forgot to take out the trash, or whatever. So if you have no internal monologue, are words not being repeated inside your head that is sitting on the page? Or is that also different? If I say a word in my head without saying it out loud, that's the internal monologue we are talking about, right? Not voices that appear to pass through our auditory senses like schizophrenia, but just the act of thinking words or sentences. If I say a word in my head without saying it out loud, that's the internal monologue we are talking about, right? Not voices that appear to pass through our auditory senses like schizophrenia, but just the act of thinking words or sentences.